I want to talk about anxiety and self-harming habits that we often have to cope with trauma or, after our cult experiences or during our cult experiences. I write quite a bit about this in Uncultured. Not that long. I write a little bit about this in the end of chapter 4, which is all about medical care. Let's see if I can find it. Oh, that's chapter 5. Chapter 5 is not the one we want to be looking at. All I knew how to do was to believe them. Okay. End of chapter 3. Behind those happy family photos, family is the name of the cult, behind the singing, praying, and praising Jesus, there was a little girl who had already started fantasizing about her own death, who from the age of 4 developed a nail-biting habit so severe that the blood constantly dripped from her nail beds and cuticles, who couldn't stop ripping and tearing her skin, despite the adults praying over her, despite the burning hot sauce they poured on her wounds. After the raid, I began making a low, guttural humming noise in the back of my throat. Sounds like this. The scratching feeling soothed me. I couldn't stop, even though it constantly got me in more trouble. My ability to control this nervous tic at times, but not at others, was seen as proof of my willfulness and often earned me more beatings, after which it would become even harder to control. And as I have begun unmasking, I do this a lot now when I sleep. It turns out I fall asleep pretty quickly when I just let myself do the self-soothing. When I began to wet my bed after years without accidents, nobody connected it to the harsh punishments or to the schmexual abuse we would never name, that we never talked about. The aunties only spanked me more, telling me it was my rebelliousness, telling me it was my sin. All I knew how to do was to believe them. And so often in cults and high control groups, we are told that these things, that these tics, that this self-harming behavior is just a bad habit. Also, by the way, a child who's not wetting the bed starts wetting the bed, go get them a pelvic exam for schmexual abuse. It's very important. And it wasn't until I am a captain in the army, I am deployed to Afghanistan, I'm 27 years old, I have written out a statement about my childhood for reasons. You can read about it in Uncultured, signed copies in the link in the description, or if you just search Uncultured on TikTok's Marketplace. And my assistant intelligence officer read my statement and he just went, "Now I totally understand why you're always biting and tearing your cuticles until they bleed." And I had never put it together this way in a trauma response because, of course, I was told it was a bad habit and had hot sauce put on my fingers and all of this stuff. So what I wanted to say was for the past probably year and a half now, I finally have been on anxiety medication. And I was on one that I thought really helped me. And the psychiatrist was like, there's still another thing we think you should try. And I did. Often we are very resistant as cult survivors to trying anxiety medication because we're so afraid of it changing our personality. And actually, me and 3 of my cult survivor friends, we all talked each other through it as we were all getting on medication. And the way we describe it the most is it just lowers the noise. And so when I got on the additional medication, one thing I noticed instantly was I stopped biting my nails. Almost stopped picking the cuticles. The thumbs are still pretty bad, especially once you start biting your nails and you have weapons. Stop biting your nails and you have weapons on your fingers. And then, so a month passed, beautiful nails, not doing it anymore. And then for some reason, the description is too long, but I started accidentally only taking half of the prescription. I started taking only 1 pill a day instead of 2. And I realized that a few days ago on a call with my psychiatrist. But a week before, I had noticed I'm biting my nails and picking again. And I was like, oh, I guess it wasn't that helpful, or my body got used to it. And then through a discussion with the psychiatrist, 2 days ago, I realized, oh, like I'm only taking half of the dosage. So I've gone back up, and literally in 2 days, you can still see some of my wounded cuticles, but my nails are coming back. And it's just so fascinating to me. And I think an important thing to talk about, that like when we actually treat the symptoms of our trauma instead of treating the things we do as the problem, right? I mean, my nail biting and my cuticle biting obviously is problematic. I used to literally have to like wrap my fingers in medical tape when I was in the army so that I just like wouldn't do it all day. But the problem was the anxiety, right? That is like, and the trauma that needs to be dealt with, which is a bigger thing. But I just wanted to tell this, and hopefully this is encouraging to some people who have been told that like all of your coping mechanisms are just bad habits, or they're just you. Most of it is because of our trauma. And the good news is we can sort those things out. We can get medications for them. We can get support for them. We can get help. Obviously, anxiety medication is not for everybody, but I like to talk about my experience with it because it has only been good. And I was so scared and resistant to it for about a decade, when I could have probably been having a much easier life.